But good evening. My name is Tracy Allison. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar tonight on how to survive paying for college. It's part of our Money Matters series held every third Thursday of the month here at the Champaign Public Library. Just some library news. We are currently open to the public with slightly limited hours using a grab and go model. So if you're not comfortable coming into the building, we're still operating our phone, chat, and email reference services, as well as curbside pickup for any items you'd like to check out. So for all of our latest details, our updates, you can visit our website at champaign.org. With that, I'd like to introduce our presenters for the evening, Jennifer White and Scott Olthoff. They are financial representatives at Chesser Financial here in Champaign, and we're really grateful that they've come tonight to share their expertise with us. And all right, I'll leave you guys to it.
All right, well, my name is Jennifer White, and as Tracy said, I'm here from Chesser Financial in Champaign. I'm gonna make a little bit bigger screen there. We are located on Devonshire Drive, and I have had the joy of being a part of Chesser for 3 years, almost 3.5 years now. And I teamed up with my colleague Scott, who's been here a little over 10 years. And we love to put on educational workshops for the community. So a lot of information that we find in our practice that maybe our clients don't know, we want to pass along now, so that way you know. We asked for this format to be a little bit more like a traditional Zoom call. If you want to turn on your camera, you're welcome to. You certainly don't have to. As you have questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll answer them. Tracy, will they be able to unmute themselves to ask a question, or?
Yeah, they should be able to.
Okay, so feel free to do that along the way as well. I'm going to lead the presentation tonight, and Scott is going to chime in along the way. He has a daughter. His oldest daughter is actually a sophomore in college, so he has a lot of very helpful information. I have an 11-year-old Ella. She's a 5th grader at International Prep Academy. And I have a 4-year-old Jocelyn, and she is a student at Carl Auditory Oral School in Urbana. And so we've just begun saving for college in a lot of ways. So you kind of have a broad spectrum here this evening. Scott, is there anything you want to add for
Yes,
the intro?
you know, I've been walking this road with my daughter since she was probably a freshman, so probably 6 or 7 years down this road, trying to figure out how to pay for college, how to be most efficient with the money. College is a huge expense for parents, and one of the biggest wealth eroders we see as financial representatives. So if we can come alongside and figure out ways to make college more affordable, how to find ways to pay for it more effectively, that's a very big deal. That's why we're here to help tonight.
So tonight's agenda, we really have 3 broad things that we want to cover. Is number 1, how much does college cost? Number 2, how to reduce our college costs. And number 3, how to fund college. There's a nice quote here at the bottom. I learned law so well the day I graduated, I sued the college, won the case, and got my tuition back. So that's from Fred Allen. So we're going to start with how much does college cost? And we want to talk through the different pricing structures for anything from a 2-year community college all the way up to an out-of-state 4-year private institution. You can see those numbers on the screen, but I'm going to just go through them really quickly. So a public 2-year community college, and keep in mind that this includes books, room and board, any fees, transportation, and miscellaneous costs. So it's not necessarily like the tuition at Parkland College alone. So public 2-year community college, $12,000 to $17,000 a year. Public 4-year in-state, like maybe an Eastern Illinois University or Southern Illinois University, $20,000 to $36,000 a year. Public 4-year out-of-state school, $35,000 to $54,000. So kind of to just jump back, when I was thinking in-state, I'm thinking, okay, EIU, SIU versus say like the University of Illinois. And a private 4-year school can run anywhere between $35,000 and $70,000 a year.
Yep, and I I experienced that with my daughter. Went to Parkland for a year. It cost about $10,000 to $12,000 to send her there after tuition, books, and then fees, and then transportation, and also just housing her and food. So that's a good representation for a community college, even though it's more affordable, but it's still expensive.
Absolutely. So here is an interesting image on the screen. Price changes in different things, from textbooks to TVs, from January 1996 to December 2016. You can see all the way up to the very top, textbooks are up over 200%, whereas the cost of our TV has fallen tremendously. College tuition up more, inflated over 200% between 1996 and 2016. So these numbers are from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and you can just really see why school has gotten so expensive and why it's so expensive for all of us.
And I'm going to date myself on this. I graduated from undergraduate in '95, so I've experienced this through my working lifetime and as my daughter grew up. Graduated in '95, '96 through 2016, college is up 200%. There's no way kids today can work in the summers and pay for college for the rest of the year. It's impossible. Hasn't kept up. Inflation's, they did not keep up with inflation, and cost of college way outpaced inflation. That's what's happening to us today.
Yeah. So one good example is that 1 year of college equals one new car. Now, when we think about the cost, which we saw in that previous slide, we have choices. So just like we have a choice when we go out and purchase a new car, do we want a cost-effective, good Kia, or do we want a more expensive luxury Volvo? So we have a choice inside of there, but if you can think about it, that 1 year of college is equivalent to the purchase of one new car. And the interesting thing is, it's not just one car, but it's actually a fleet of cars. So you can imagine if you have one student going 4 years, that's 4 cars. If you have 2 students, 8 cars. So it kind of puts it a little bit in perspective.
Yep, I love that example, that it's a brand new car for every year of college. And just like you mentioned, Jennifer, affordable car can get you to and from, or we can pay really high amounts for a brand new car. I love that example, that if you put it in perspective, that each year of college is equivalent to a brand new car. Let's try to make it the most affordable we can. So funding college. So every student and parent must know the answer to these 3 questions before applying to their first college. Number 1 is, how much is the most we are willing to pay? Number 2 is, how can we reduce our cost at each college as well? And then, how will we fund each college full expense? So financial aid. So many families reduce their costs with financial aid. So we want to talk through here in the next few slides, what is financial aid? Where does it come from? And who qualifies for financial aid? And we're going to talk in a minute about the Fafsa Form. And the Fafsa Form is the free application for federal student aid. It comes out in October, and it's, for most colleges and universities, they want to see it by March 1st. I think you have until June to actually fill it out if you were going by federal government rules. But each college will set their deadline date. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in depth in a minute. But essentially, every family should fill out their free application for federal student aid. So. And financial aid can come in grants, loans, need-based and merit-based aid. Who qualifies? We all qualify for some sort of financial aid. As Jennifer mentioned, make sure you fill out that free FAFSA form we're going to go over here in a few minutes.
Yep. So I want to stay here for just a second, because we've had some rule changes at the end of last year regarding this slide and kind of as we march forward. But we're going to talk about expected family contribution. Now, I don't know if you've heard of the Student Aid Index. Just the expected family contribution is the same thing as the Student Aid Index, which is the terminology that changed in the last legislation. What people have always been confused about is, is expected family contribution what I'm expected to pay only, or is it the amount of aid I'm going to get? And it just got kind of confusing. So with the student aid index, it's kind of more focused on the aid you qualify for, and then pretty much the knowledge that families have to come up with the rest, whatever that may be. So for the purpose of this evening, though, we're going to continue, because for the next year or two, we're going to continue with expected family contribution. And so we're going to continue that on our slide. So the expected family contribution that you'll receive once you've completed your FAFSA and you hear back from your college of choice is the annual amount that the government and the college expects a family to contribute toward their students' cost of attendance. So in order to calculate that, the school and the government are going to look at the parent's income, the parent's assets, the student's income and assets, the number of students in college, the parent's age, and the number of people in the household. Now, I don't want to get too in the weeds here with the new legislation. The number of students in college actually doesn't matter anymore, but it will for the next 2 years until July 1st, 2023 is when the new rules go into effect. And the parent's age used to mean a lot more, but it's kind of dwindled down to where it's not meaning as much anymore. But for the purpose of our discussion tonight, we're just going to charge forward with where we expect things to be in the next year or two.
And every family that applies for financial aid will have an EFC number. You'll get your expected family contribution. We're going to talk about this a little more, but we kind of divide families into 3 categories. Number 1 families are ones that will qualify for the most need-based aid. And so we want to maximize or reduce the taxable income as much as we can, so we maximize that need-based aid. Those are grants, different things we could qualify for. The second type of family we talk about are those who sometimes qualify for need-based aid. Those families more middle to upper income brackets. That will depend on what school they go to. So if they go to a very high-end school, they're more likely to qualify for need-based aid. If they go to a very economical school, maybe not qualify. So number 2 families are either or, and number 3 families have too many assets, too much income to qualify for any need-based aid. We need to look for other scholarships or merit-based aid in that category. So those are 3 things. We're going to talk more about that as we go, but category 1, 2, and 3 families. So just an example of what we can do and help with that process.
That's good. So how to apply for financial aid. So not only the FAFSA, which is the federal methodology for applying for student aid, but the CSS profile, which is more of an institutional methodology. You'll find private schools, sometimes on the East Coast, a lot on the East Coast, that use the CSS profile. So it's college specific on what they're going to have you fill out. More than likely, it's going to be the FAFSA. Meeting every deadline is critical. So if the school has a March 1st deadline, you want to get that FAFSA in just as quickly as possible. Most colleges will not offer any institutional grants if financial aid applications are not received by the college deadline. So that's really important to know that those institutional grants are based upon that FAFSA form.
Yeah, if you have a student that's going to go to college this fall and you haven't applied for financial aid, you need to do so immediately, and please ask for help, because like Jennifer said, a lot of these deadlines are coming up March, maybe April at the latest, and it's first come, first serve. So you want to make sure you get on the ball and apply for those financial aid packages from the different colleges, because they're going to have award letters coming out real soon. And if you don't have your information in, you're going to miss out. Now, if you have a student going to school next fall, like fall of 2022, you're going to be applying for financial aid starting in October. So now you want to kind of get ready for that. There's things that you can do to kind of prepare for that ahead of time. And that's where we're here to help. Yep.
One other quick thing. One nice thing about the new legislation is the Fafsa Form has about 100 questions on it right now. It's only going to have 36 in the future. So that's kind of something to look forward to for those of you with parents of younger kids. So So let's talk through the EFC formula. So how does a school determine how much I as a family can contribute to my son or daughter's education? So what we're going to look at is the parent contribution first, and then we'll look at the student contribution. So the parent contribution is going to be the adjusted income. The adjusted income equals your adjusted gross income plus any untaxed benefits. And they're going to subtract your Social Security, your FICA, the IPA and EEA, which those are basically like how many, I believe how many children are in the household, Scott, is that correct? And then
a number of students in the family, right? Yep. And then the
Yep.
age of the, yeah, go ahead.
Age of the parents, yeah. And then discretionary assets, which are going to be your investments, real estate, children's assets, maybe UTMA accounts, and any savings accounts. But what is withheld from that, which is a good thing, are retirement accounts, insurance, home equity, and all those things hold steady even with the new law changes. So that's a good thing. The student contribution, again, depends on the student's income and any discretionary assets. And then any, again, it's calculated very much the same way as the parent's income. So.
And also, if you look at the down low, the aid advantage versus tax advantage. So the lower your income, the more aid advantage you can become. You know, in the state of Illinois, for instance, if a family of 4 makes under $60,000 a year, you pretty much have free tuition for us in-state college. Now, it doesn't include room and board, but that's pretty much free tuition. Now, if you're a high income family, have a lot of assets, then we want to look for some tax advantages for college planning. So that's kind of how things work.
Sounds good. All right, let's talk about what financial aid is and is not. So financial aid 101, what you pay is the cost of college, bottom line. What you pay is not the cost of college minus financial aid. So your financial aid, anything that you have to pay back, is included in your overall cost of college. What you pay does equal the cost of college minus any gift aid, so any money that you don't have to pay back.
Yeah, so one of the frustration as a parent when I see the award letter from a college, so my daughter's going to Olivet and Kankakee, is they'll just say, well, it cost $10,000 to send your daughter to college. We're going to give her this loan that counts as that. And so they make it look like the loans are just free money, and they're not. They're not. You got to pay those back. So I don't like the way the colleges, they call it financial aid. Well, it's aid, but you have to pay it back. I like the gift aid, the free money. For me, that's what counts.
Exactly. So let's look at financial aid breakdown. So about 48% of financial aid is available through federal student loans. 16%, the next highest category there, is through institutional grants. Pell Grants make up a large portion as well. In the new legislation, Pell Grants will be for individuals whose income is 175% of the federal poverty guideline. And so, and it's automatic now. So, so that's kind of interesting. So that's kind of the third largest amount of aid available. There are other federal programs. There's also private and employer grants. There's now an employer opportunity, which came into effect a couple years ago and is going to hold steady through 2026, where you graduate, the employer can pay off your student loan up to a certain amount per year. I think it's a little over $5,000 per year. And then there's education tax credits and deductions as well. So some of those, you see the federal work study sliver there as well. And those state grants and educational tax credits and deductions, I think some of those things too, maybe for teaching in a certain area or different specialty aid packages available depending on maybe what your student goes into. So.
And the state grant, depending on what state you live in, I kind of talked about that already. So you live in the state of Illinois, there's pretty good state grants available for families that are lower incomes. So
That's good. All right, so we have a family here, and we're going to say that their oldest daughter's name is Ella. and they've gone through the free application for federal student aid. They found out that their EFC is $12,000. So they know that they're going to have to come up with $12,000 at least for Ella's education. So Ella's looking at 3 colleges. College A has an annual cost of attendance of $68,000 a year. College B, $51,000, and College C has a cost of attendance of $22,000. So let's look at a example for them. And this is just an example and an illustration, but it's done and we put it together to give you a visual that you may not expect and how this can play out. So the expenses, private school A, the cost of attendance is $68,000. And so the family, Ella's parents, are expected to come up with $12,000. So the school deducts that. So Ella's need to attend that college is now $56,000 a year. So private school A, they have a lot of donors, institutional grants, and they're saying, Ella, we can gift you $52,000 a year. So that just leaves $4,000 that Ella would need to take out in student loans. So her annual out of pocket is $6,000. If we look at the more affordable state school on the other end of this illustration, the cost of attendance is $22,000 a year. Ella's family has to come up with $12,000 of that tuition, and so there's $10,000 left, but there's very little gift aid at the state school. So there's a higher out-of-pocket annual cost for the family. So it's just interesting, the moderate private school B is the most expensive. So it's just something to keep in consideration. That's why Scott and I generally feel like if you have a list of colleges and you've narrowed them down, just don't assume this college is more expensive, especially if it's a private school. It may not be, but you want to find out what your aid package is.
And that's been true for our family, Jennifer.
Yeah.
That, Megan went to Parkland first, but then she got good grades. And because the private school she went to rewards students for good grades in college, she got the highest merit-based award. And so never judge a school by the cost, only by what they give you at the end. So you're going to get a financial award letter from each school. That will tell you what the bottom line is for each school. Different schools have different grants, different donors that give a lot of money to schools. So never just discount a school for the cost until you get the financial aid package from the school. That's a really good example of that. And this family is one of those category 2 families. So the choice of the school is the most important in this family to reduce the cost of college. Obviously, if that student picks the most expensive school, that's the least expensive for the family to afford in that example.
So this family is probably a category 1 family, right, Scott? So they have an expected family contribution of $30,000 a year.
They're both families are category 2 families because they
okay.
apply for some aid. Yeah.
So this family is expected to come up with a little bit more in that category 2. And if we go ahead and we've kind of looked at the numbers at the top, if we just compare numbers at the bottom of annual out-of-pocket costs, in this instance, we actually see that the state school is the most cost-effective choice, and that's because the family is expected to come up with $30,000 and the state school is only costing $22,000. So just a little bit different example there.
Yeah, and there, again, good example not to discount a school because of the cost that the school's sticker price. You want to make sure you get what the financial aid package is. Here, in that previous example with the $12,000 EFC, you have a family that has a lot less income, yet they can afford to send their student to the higher dollar school because the school has a lot more gift aid for the lower income families. Now you have a higher income family, they don't qualify for that, the higher scholarship because whatever the rules are for that school. So the most affordable is the state school in this family's case. So again, don't take the sticker, don't be shocked by the sticker price. Wait till you get the financial aid package.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions at this point that they want to ask? You can pop on and ask. Okay, if not, I'll just keep going. So borrowing sources, student loans. So we're looking at the William D. Ford Federal Direct Loan Program. So the maximum amount that the federal student loan can cover for freshmen is $5,500 a year, all the way up to $7,500 a year for seniors. The maximum student debt that a student can walk away with from loans from the federal government is $31,000 a year. There's two types of loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. What subsidized loans do is essentially the government subsidizes the student's interest until 6 months after graduation, and then the interest and payment begin 6 months after school. With unsubsidized loans, the principal payment doesn't begin until 6 months after school, but you do have to pay interest on the loan while you are in school.
And all students qualify if they submit a Fafsa form. So no matter what, if you submit a Fafsa form, you'll qualify for these types of loans.
That's right. So fixed interest rate is determined at the time of the loan, and we'll look at that on the next slide. And repayment, like I said, begins 6 months after the student leaves in school status. So let's talk about our interest rates. So interest rates are obviously very low, and so they've gone down a little bit here. But direct loans, it would be the 10-year Treasury note plus 2.05%. So the interest rate on direct loans, both subsidized and unsubsidized for undergraduates, is about, is it 2.75, Scott? And then,
yep, 2.75, and then it was 4.53 last year.
So you can see how that's really gone down. There's always a loan origination fee. And to be honest with you, I went to college a long time ago and I had no idea about the loan origination fee until I started working in finance. So just so you know that the loan origination fee is there. Direct loans for graduates, unsubsidized, the 10-year Treasury yield plus 3.6%. So graduate students, interest rate 4.3% going into 2020-21, quite a bit lower than the 6.08%. Higher loan origination fees though. And parent plus loans, those are the killer. 5.30%. Last year it was 7.08%. And again, the same 4.24 of a loan origination fee. So these rates apply, you can see down at the bottom, for the entire life of the loan. So as far as federal loans are concerned, you're not going to have an adjustable interest rate. So.
And they adjust those on July 1st. And so if July 1st was today, they would probably bump about 1% higher. So it'd be about 3.75, 5.3, and 6.3, because the Treasury's up. It's up than it was a year ago. So just take that into account. So it'll vary from year to year.
Yes. All right, so let's talk through some other borrowing sources. So there's mortgages and HELOCs, permanent life insurance collateralized loans, brokerage account margin and collateralized loans, other loan sources that maybe are not so great, improperly used HELOCs, 401k loans. And then there's always those very ugly funding sources, which would be credit cards, 401k, IRA liquidation. Oftentimes when we meet with our clients, from our perspective, we're thinking through the retirement plan for the family, for the couple that we're sitting across from. So if they've, if they come to see us first, we can help them navigate the best way based on their particular situation to pay for college. It's always difficult for us when folks come in and say, I want to retire in 10 years, but I just spent all of my 401k on my kids going to college. Yep. So that's why we always encourage you to talk to someone, so that way you can make a good plan for your family, because there are always things that folks don't think of when it comes to movement of money as sources for paying for college.
Yeah, excellent point, Jennifer. We are here to figure those things out. We're experts at that. One of our highest values at Chester Financial is to stop financial losses in people's lives. This is a huge financial loss, or potential financial loss, especially for retirement dollars. So, sit down with someone that can help you figure this out. The good loan sources, the good sources of money. That's very, very important to do so, and start early if you can.
That's good. Very good. So Scott, we want to talk through this.
Yeah, so this is the, we talked about category 1 families. We always want to optimize our aid eligibility. So working with tax returns, and think about this, so we're going to talk about this in a few minutes, but if you have a high school sophomore this year, that's the tax return you're going to use for say you have a sophomore in high school right now. 2021 would be the tax return you need for their FAFSA form for their first year of college. So we want to make sure we optimize aid eligibility if you're a category 1 family. Category 2 family, where there's sometimes aid available, we want to make sure your school selection is the #1 way to reduce college costs. So I would say if you're a category 2 family, you think you fall in that category, well, most of us do, you want to make sure you have your student pick out a wide range of schools. So they have many to choose from, so we have schools that compete for aid eligibility. In category 3, we want to look for tax scholarships. So if you have a lot of assets, a lot of income, there's ways we can work with a tax code and have some tax scholarships. So, we're here to help. We're here to make college more affordable for you. Please reach out.
All right, success plan timeline for college-bound students. We can certainly, if you email us, we can send this out to you. But we're looking at sophomore, junior, senior year. And what you should be doing when. So I think this is really helpful. So we wanted to show it, but when should you assess retirement readiness? For sure, sophomore year, if not before. Calculate the EFC sophomore year. Calculate college class flow sophomore year. And then as we're looking at the red is what is the student responsibility, blue is parent responsibility, and orange or yellow is family responsibility. So college visits, starting early for college visits. I know Scott always thinks through that as well. So
yeah, if you have a sophomore, this summer would be a perfect time to start doing college visits between your sophomore and junior year.
Yep. And then as far as student responsibility, understanding their college, what they want to do in college, doing career assessments, thinking through those things, I know it's difficult sometimes for kids to know exactly what they want to do, but maybe doing some assessments can help them, because probably the last thing you want to do is have a 5 or 6 year undergraduate college student. You want to try to keep that down to 4 years and do it efficiently. So kind of those assessments can kind of help. In the red too, you can see prepping for the ACT, SAT, taking the tests, and then making any final college visits senior year. So this is just a great success plan timeline, and we're more than happy to send it out for you.
Let's say you have a freshman right now. I would make sure they're taking the ACT or SAT this summer just to get a baseline. A lot of these colleges, for instance, like Olivet, for as an example, if you have a 26 in the ACT versus 28, it's $5,000 difference. Your student can get 2 higher points in the ACT just by a little bit of study, a little bit of work with someone in the community to help them figure out how to take the test. So there's little things you can do even now with a freshman sophomore year to prepare them to get higher scores on the ACT and SAT that get them more merit-based aid. I mean, that could be the best part-time job they have, is getting a higher score on the ACT and SAT.
That's good. So where do we go from here? So Scott and I, just for doing this through the library, you can schedule a personal college planning consultation with us. We're happy to do that with you. There's no cost at all. We have a Facebook page as well if you want to look us up there, and then our email addresses are below. But you can just shoot us an email and we'll send you out that college planning timeline. Ask us any questions that you have. We're doing a lot of meetings virtually. Some clients, or especially new prospective individuals or people that just want to follow up on this type of a session, like those virtual meetings, we're more than happy to do those and set those up as well, to kind of dig a little bit deeper into maybe some of your own personal questions.
And like Jennifer, like I mentioned earlier, one of our highest values is to stop financial losses in people's lives. And this is a big one. And so please reach out to us. We've done this with many different clients, different economic situations. Whatever you find yourself in, please reach out. We're here to help.
Yep. Any questions or anything?
If you'd like to be part of a newsletter, send Jennifer and I an email. We'll send you out a newsletter every week. We kind of subscribe to different magazines and newspaper articles, and you'll get some different articles every week to stay in touch. You can communicate with us on Facebook, things like that. So we're in the community. I just came from the Edison Middle School basketball game. I'm a coach in the community, so I'm around.
And you won.
And we won tonight, yeah.
I'm feeling a lot more thankful for what my parents did for me now that because they paid for my undergraduate degree. They said, if you, oh, actually, I see a question here. Can you give any suggestions for parents with young kids?
Well, obviously, I mentioned this to Tracy earlier. The best time to saving money, there's two best times. One is right when they're born, and the second best time is right now. So, start saving money if you can for their college education, but make sure your retirement's taken care of first, then the college education. It's kind of in that order. It's priorities. So, great question.
Yeah.
So question from Allison is a 529 best? So.
That depends on the situation. I just got an email from the Mike Frericks, who oversees the 529 plans in Illinois. There's now $15 billion in the plan. Mike Frericks has done a phenomenal job for a 529 plan in the state of Illinois, but I have no idea if that's best for you. It's not a blanket thing. It depends on your income situation, depends on your retirement situation, work situation, but it's a tool, and every tool is, could use it in your situation. It just depends.
I will say, if you're going to do a 529 plan and you live in Illinois, do the one in Illinois, because there's tax benefits to that, and it's excellent. It's actually top 5 in the nation, and it was bottom. Yeah. It's excellent now. So, yeah.
Great question.
Yeah, this is interesting for me, even though I'm not in a position right now where I need to pay for anyone else's college. Of course, I'm still paying off my master's degree. Once my parents saw the interest that I was paying off, they were like, no, we're doing something different now.
Wow.
And so I was so we ended up doing a home equity thing. So now I have a fixed payment with low interest.
Yeah. That's great, because interest rates now on mortgages are around 3%, so that's a lot better value than 5 or 6%. And
yeah, they were appalled.
Yeah, those plus loans are very, very expensive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Private student loans. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And a few years ago when you did it, it's probably much higher. So
yeah. So since they handled the undergraduate stuff, I didn't know anything about paying for my grad school. And when they saw it, they were like, we need to do something different. And I'm really grateful for that. So it's, even though I learned a little late, it still was helpful that we kind of recalibrated, but it would have been great to know earlier.
Yeah, anything with, a lot of times private loans, anything with adjustable rates, we tend to try to stay away from those as much as possible. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, does anybody have any more questions?
Thanks everyone for logging tonight, listening to us.
Yes, thank you.
We're here to help, so just reach out.
Yeah, thank you guys both. And all of our recordings of any of our webinars, I'll talk to you guys about this one, but any of our webinars are on our Champaign Public Library YouTube channel. And our next month Money Matters series will be hosted by the Institute for Financial Education. The topic is financial pitfalls, roadblocks to avoid in 2021, which I know that's something on a lot of our minds right now. So thank you, everybody, and have a nice night.
See ya.
See ya.